stand for the invocations and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, our divine spirit, creator of all there is and ever shall be, we ask you to send your blessings down on our little city. We ask you to bless the council. We ask you to bless all the city workers, our fire department, our police department. And we ask you to please guide the council to make the proper decisions for the highest good of our city. We thank thee for all these blessings. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hanville.
Mayor Dale Masson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Terrence Rowe.
Here.
Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman William Dittmer.
Here.
Councilman Richard Bloom.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager Vincent Lupo.
Here.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
General public. Thomas Brown.
Thomas Brown, 7436 Candlelight Court. Is this on?
Can't hear a thing. Can't hear a thing.
I consider Lake Cox to be a lake. Our city manager and our city attorney consider that body of water to be a man-dug retention pond. If that nearly 2-acre body of water is a retention pond, why, in the 35 years, has it not dried up? If it is a retention pond, why do we waste taxpayers' money to maintain a fountain in it and supply the pump with electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? In a quest to collect more taxes, the city will permit the building of 480 dwellings. The townhomes, condominiums, and private homes will create a large demand on our city water system. We will be trying to provide water to at least 700 toilets, 900 sinks, 480 showers, 500 outside hose faucets, and hundreds of washing machines. When the city wells run out of water or suffer from saltwater intrusion, which dredging hastens, we will be back to buying water from the city of Newport Richey. In 2016, Clearwater launched a $33 million project which will enable them to inject treated wastewater into the ground to supplement the supply of drinking water in the aquifer. As sea level rises and the aquifer level drops, we will experience saltwater intrusion. Running brackish water through a reverse osmosis system makes 80 of 100 gallons drinkable. The other 20 gallons is waste. Councilman Wright was correct years ago when he said water will become a commodity. When a resident in the Candlelight subdivision puts up a fence that runs to the property line, 5 feet of that fence will be on a recorded easement. The 5-foot wide recorded easements start at the resident's property line and go in onto the resident's property. City ordinance mandates that any fence that a resident puts on any recorded easement must have 4 no objection to dig letters from the utilities. Neither of the fences behind 7447.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Bill Colombo.
Bill Colombo, 7810 Chaska Street, Port Richey, Florida, Mayor and Council. I will restrict my opening comments in this particular section to one thing, and that's relating to items 2 and 3 coming up, the city's audited financial reports and our city accountant's report. We've usually had these things included in the agenda packet and available for everybody to look at and digest prior to the meeting. It wasn't in the agenda packet, as you know, sometime Saturday, the links to the agendas went down anyway. So I really hope in the future that we get that out ahead of time. It is important. It's, as you know, you guys got copies of it. You always do. You know, the audited financials are pretty voluminous and it takes a little while to digest. I look forward to hearing from Mr. Pete Schatzel. During my time on council, Mr. Schatzel used to report to us on a quarterly basis. And when I was on council, I thought that was invaluable for council members to know where we were on budget versus expenditures through the year, not just on one occasion per year. So I would entreat council for your own information to reinstitute that. I think it's a very valuable thing. Other than that, I'll comment on applicable agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Smith.
Claudia Smith, 7335 Candlelight Court. The only thing I'm going to talk about is the residential maintenance thing that's going through whenever it's going to go through. I agree that we should have something like that, absolutely. My problem is that you didn't want to have citizen input. You didn't ask that the Citizens Advisory Committee be involved. You didn't go out and get opinions from the citizens. That was wrong. That was really, really wrong. And I believe this is the result of what you did. So we'll see. But I agree with you, yes, we should have some sort of something in place. I don't believe that people will be able to walk in my house and tell me that I have to get a toilet fixed. I don't believe that. But I do believe the way that you are going about this is totally wrong. You have to remember, you're elected by the citizens, and you didn't even want to listen to them. You didn't want to hear their opinion, obviously, because you just pushed it on through. It's wrong, people. You know it. I know it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Matt?
Good evening, council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a comment on this minimum housing standards. I think it's a great thing, and I agree with Claudia about people, you know, put their input in it and all that there. But the residents need to start calling realtors and asking them where their value of their property stands. I had 4 realtors come to my house because I got tired of dealing, because code compliance was trying to do their job, and they couldn't because loopholes and they didn't have no teeth. Mr. Colombo made facts that was not true, which costed the city $1,900,000 in water that the city manager and this council and the city attorney fixed. Bottom line is, the residents need to figure out, call the realtors and find out if they were to put their houses on the market tomorrow, how much their property values have depreciated. They said anywhere between 20 to 25% of what the value of these homes will lose. So the bottom line is, where minimum housing standards, they need to look it up. Mr. Colombo needs to stop making false accusations to the public, because he took this city just about bankrupt. And I have the facts right here to prove it. The thing is that irritates me is I take pride in my home. And I'm not going to deal with my home being ran down, and I'm embarrassed to bring relatives out and other residents to come see. I had a bunch of the residents over my house. They said, "You got a beautiful home, Matt, but when you come down the street, look at Mallet Drive now, what it looks like." Mr. Lupo addressed the problem. Mr. Colombo lived, vice mayor, all them years off a pier of the motel with the fences. Mr. Lupo addressed the problem, and I thank you, Mr. Lupo, and the people on Mallet. Thank you, and the other people over there. Thank you for what you did on that fence. All the trash is gone. The homes look better. It's ridiculous that you guys are dealing with this. Thank you for trying to do something, and I understand their concerns, but where do people think that someone's gonna come in their house and raid them? Do they know what their constitutional right is? I mean, really? Please, people, that man sat on council and about destroyed this city and bankrupt it, and for you sitting on council, you've cleaned this city up, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Amen. Anyone else?
I'm Bob Reed. I live over on Pier Road. Most everybody here knows that I just moved in. I'm brand new to this city. And I'd simply like to say that I believe that we do need information on how to maintain homes, and the information should be out there. However, there's this little problem that you have with the paperwork that you've printed so far and the readings that you've done so far. One, it's against the Constitution of the United States, Article 4, to be able to come into somebody's house and inspect it. Number two, what you're doing is unenforceable because you can't just arbitrarily say, this is a public nuisance. What's a public nuisance? Have you listed it? Nope. You have any idea what it is? Oh, sure, we know what it is. Do I know what you're thinking? Nope, don't have a clue. So I really want you people to think about what you're doing. It's all for our benefit, not necessarily for yours, but you're going to make the whole situation very difficult, initially on code enforcement and then on law enforcement, because there's no way to enforce the things that you put in that code. Think about it, bring it up again, get some personal input, get some real lawyers in here who understand what needs to be done, and do not, under any circumstances, write things that are unconstitutional or unenforceable. Stop and think about what you're doing.
Didn't you live in Elfers?
Yep.
Aren't they under county?
Just moved to Pier Road, he said.
Huh?
He said he just moved to
I
Pier
know, but
Road.
I was just gonna say, I believe in Elfers you were under these same things because they're mainly just county. And no, of course, no one, listen guys, no one can come in your house without a warrant.
Wait. You say that. You're sitting here, all of you on council and the police department right now say that. Who's next? Who's the next city council? Who's the next police chief?
The Fourth Amendment will not change.
I don't care what the Fourth Amendment says at this point, because obviously you don't. It's in the paperwork that says you can come in and check my stairs, that you
Bob.
can come in and check my heater, that
Bob.
you can come in and check my windows.
One point real quick.
Invited.
And I just want to do this so everybody understands. If they're not invited in your house, they can't come in. If a landlord were to not fix sewers, have clogged up sewers, running over in their house, the tenant can call code enforcement. That's
Then
the
say
only
that.
way.
But say that.
Says it.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we're going, okay. Comments from the city manager?
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you have.
Hello, folks. I'm John Carpenter, Mallet Drive. I've been here for 3 years. It was just brought to my attention a couple days ago with the minimum housing standards, and I talked to some people in the community, and I've heard arguments from both sides. I'm not really interested in straw man arguments, whether or not things are constitutional, and what direction that argument is going to go in. What I am interested in, though, is echoing the speaker just prior to me, in that the language that is included in this paperwork is so broad that it is not giving the people of this community, at least from what I can tell by reading it, the opportunity to understand how this power will be enforced. And I don't know that there's been any other information shared with what the steps are and how this is going to be put into action. So I think I want to agree that the language seems to have potential to need to be potentially revisited, and then maybe a plan of action could be presented to the public in order to delay some of the concerns. I totally agree with improving the community, but I do want to ensure that it's done in a way that's proper. One of the big arguments seems to be that derelict landlords or landlords that are not residents of the community are not being responsible for properties, and that seems to be part of the issue. And I know from my perspective, I would like to see language that is targeted specifically at what our problem is in order to improve the community together as a community, rather than power being assumed by the government in order to enforce rules that don't have specific outlines. They're all left open to interpretation, and just as the speaker prior to me said, we know you, we have a relationship with you to some degree. We don't know who's gonna come in the future and if we will be involved at that point. And I think that it's important for us to make sure that we all understand exactly what we're doing here. So
Okay.
I'm also gonna comment again as we get closer to the topic.
Thanks for coming. Red.
Red Schatzel, 8050 Brighton Drive. You doing, Mayor?
Good to see you.
Council. This new ordinance you want to pass, you got things in there that don't even make sense. 90 days to cover your roof with a blue canvas. You got shingles missing. I was on Ponegora and Port Charlotte. The canvas was on there 2 years. Rip screens, this and that. It sounds like an HOA. I didn't buy an HOA 31 years ago. You realize that, don't you?
Yes, sir.
He had the right idea, Vince Lupo. Have a workshop on it twice. He's got it. You guys didn't want nothing to do with a workshop. How come? Here's the taxpayers here. They don't mean nothing to you people?
I mean everything to us.
Well, why don't you have a workshop?
Red, how many you been to?
How many what?
Workshop.
A couple years ago, before you were mayor, before
Maybe
you were
one.
council.
My only point was,
Get the people, the taxpayers' input on this
That's-
ordinance that you're trying to pass.
we did it better than a workshop. Now, no, sit down, sir. The point is, tonight, we'll get all your information. Normally, workshops.
You're gonna have a second reading on it tonight, right? You snuck your first one
Not
through there.
before you get to say your point, okay?
Well, I said my point, so.
I'll let it.
keep an eye on it.
Anyone else? Okay, city manager.
Mr. Mayor and Council, first of all, there was an article, an item on our last agenda that is not on this agenda, and it had to do with the purchase of animal services. And it's not on here because we are in the process of obtaining the additional information the council requested. We have partial, but it's not enough for council to make a legitimate decision with respect to the value of that item. So I postponed it until the next agenda. I would like to apologize to council and to our citizens. Over the weekend, we had a issue with our computer system and our email system and our internet system where we lost some valuable parts that crippled the entire system. That system just came back up this afternoon, so we're back up and running again with our emails and with our website and everything else. And that's part of the reason why some of the information wasn't transmitted on a more timely basis to our city council. Mr. Hughes will be speaking shortly about the upcoming debris pickup prior to the 4th of July and July 7th celebration, and also noting that we put brand new picnic benches in the waterfront park. Chris, can you talk about the timetable for brush pickups in advance of the 4th of July celebration?
Yes, sir. In preparation for the 4th of July, we'll be picking up brush all next week and during the week of the 4th of July.
Thank you, Chris. We received a petition with respect to the building ordinance It was signed by, I believe, 12 individuals from 6 or 7 residences. It'll just be added to the record. In addition, I'm proud to say that our water production and distribution continues in a positive direction. We are again saving money in not purchasing. We are saving in the manner in which we are drawing down our water supplies and in the manner in which we are redistributing those water. There will be a very positive effect on our overall bottom line, and hopefully we'll be able to come to council in the very near future with some discussions about water rates for our citizens. We'll be working on this coming budget and hopefully to be utilizing over $150,000 in CDBG grants, and hopefully we'll be able to put sidewalks in on the east side. That's something we've been looking forward to a long time. Council has been very adamant about beginning to utilize those funds. In addition, I'm still working with the county administrator and his people with respect to the repair and replacement of issues concerning Orange Grove Drive. It's not on the back burner, it's right on the front. It has to do with value of a disposition of land versus the cost of redoing Orange Grove by the county and who will maintain it afterwards. But I am in constant contact with the county administrator, so I'd like the people of Candlelight Court to know that we are indeed, we haven't forgotten the promise to address the issue at Orange Grove Drive. That's all I have. Oh, one other issue, Mr. Mayor. If you would be kind enough, if council would be allowed to move item number 7 to the front concerning the UTV, so that I can release some of the personnel here back to duty.
All right.
And that's all I have to report, sir.
Okay, bring it to council. Comments?
I have a comment. Go ahead.
You sure? This is for those folks that over in Candlelight in that district there. I had an opportunity to speak with the law firm that was suing Pasco County on for flooding issues. They represent Suncoast Gateway Mobile Home Community, and we had a lengthy conversation. His name is David Smolker. There's a trial scheduled over here in Newport Richey in October, and and the issue's similar to the flooding problem. And if they prevail at trial, then I think it would be in the best interest of those residents in Candlelight to perhaps consider speaking with this law firm. It would be unlikely that Pasco County would take on a second litigation that's almost a mirror image of the one that's taking place at the Suncoast Gateway Mobile Home. And if anybody from that area needs a little more information, I'd be happy to share it with them.
And I believe we know the answer to that. Joe, we're gonna go do it. Terry, anything?
Are we going to move 7 up?
Yes, but we're still in here.
So,
Anything here? Any comment? No, no. Okay. I'm gonna just let y'all be free without mine. Okay, we have 7, which is purchase of UTV for fire department.
Do you want to take the consent agenda first, sir? And do your consent agenda?
Okay, you wanted that, okay. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 7, discussion, purchase of UTV for fire department, pages 39, 49. Who would like to take it?
Firefighter Thomas Quinn, making a brief presentation.
evening. Can you guys hear me okay, like this? Good
Yes.
evening, Mayor and Council. You guys, on the last agenda was in reference to the purchase of the fire department's utility all-terrain vehicle. It was stressed that there wants to be some more information on what this fire vehicle will be used for, how it'll be used within the city, and our limited access areas. So we spent probably last week and a half going through the city. We, of course, know our limited access areas. We're familiar with our limited access areas in preparation for emergencies within inside city limits. But we wanted to document those in a photo area. So we went ahead and started a presentation for you guys.
Sure.
A PowerPoint here. So of course, utilities, we're asking for a 2008 Kawasaki Mule with a Chemtrek Firelight transport. So the Kawasaki Mule, we're wondering why we chose to go with a Kawasaki Mule. This Kawasaki Mule comes with a 3-year factory warranty. Other Polaris is Yamaha, and the other ones we've looked at only have a 6-month factory warranty. So the ability to have that factory warranty for 3 years instead of 6 months is huge. Has a 1,000-pound bed capacity. That's that rear of the bed right here. The rear of the bed. People ask, well, why is the fire department going to need a 1,000-pound bed capacity? That transport, for us to be able to transport a patient and carry 70 gallons of water, is 918 pounds. So we need to have that 1,000-pound capacity to be able to transport those patients. Has a 2,000-pound payload capacity. The other part also, if we get 20% off on service and repair for being a government agency through Kawasaki, and servicing's completed right here inside Pasco County. The Firelight transport is designed to fit the Kawasaki Mule, has 70 gallons of water, 50 feet of 1-inch hose. It can pump up to 65 gallons a minute, 50, and then it'll put down the PSIs there. Has a patient transport area. It's made of aluminum. United States, going to have water rescue equipment on it also for waterfront response district. Funding, that's the big question. The fire department purchased the drone purchase, budgeted a drone purchase for the fiscal year 18, oh, excuse me, it's actually 17-18. It's a 17-18 year. The purchase of the UTV will come from fire impact fees. The purchase of the Firelight will come from Penny for Pasco. That is budgeted. People asking why no drone. We chose not to go with a drone for a few reasons. The first thing is for a fire rescue drone, it requires 2 operators. Currently, our staffing on our fire truck is 2 people. So all those 2 firefighters would be dedicated on the response of that drone. The other thing it requires to have an FAA unmanned 107 pilot's license. That pilot's license for that class is roughly $600 to $700 a firefighter that we'd have to spend on that. We're unable to use it on brush fires once the Florida Forest Service gets on scene. If anybody's familiar with how pilots in the Florida Service fly, they fly by line of sight flight. So they don't use instrumentations typically while they're on scene of a fire. And once a drone's inside the air, it also can't be used. That also goes for any other aviation units. If there's Coast Guard on scene, the response to the boat, Coast Guard was immediately on scene. As soon as the Coast Guard has their helicopter in the air, we cannot have that drone inside the air. The other part, the city building department currently has a drone. If so, we needed to have a drone at that time. Use for the fire department UTV, it's going to be used on brush and urban interface fire, limited access fire and rescue EMS incidents, special events for fire suppression EMS, post-storms events, weight restricted areas, EMS response to construction sites, the future hike and bike trail, mutual aid, community outreach, and assisting other city departments. Brush fires. The city of Port Richey averages 10.8 brush fires a year since 2008. The FD is tasked with protecting an EMS response of approximately 437 acres of wildland within the city limits. Currently, the Port Richey Fire Department relies on mutual aid for a vehicle to combat brush fires in limited access areas. Not brush fires, just brush fires in limited access areas. And all the pictures you see are actual fires of our fire department.
Next page.
Limited access areas, it was brought up. Right here, you're going to see Eptide Lane. This is the bird sanctuary. If you go down Eptide Lane, it's going to be that large area right in here. That's approximately 80 acres. And you'll see the limited access areas with the road coming in, the roads going to it, and the trails along that limited access area of Eptide Lane. Next area you see is the city brush pile. That vast area right there also includes our well fields. is actually all the city jurisdiction, and it's approximately 90 acres of wildland urban interface.
Where's that?
Wellfield and brush pile.
The city brush pile, as you can see, it's there. That brush pile is variable, so some months it can be quite large, as Mr. Hughes can probably go on, and then other months it can shrink down. So it's depending on the size of that brush pile. Betty and Green Street. It's a lot of area that some people don't know because people don't go down that street very often. Betty and Green Street is approximately another 10 acres of wildland urban interface that has access right off of Green, and it leads back into the wooded area. Limit Drive, everybody knows at the end of Limit Drive, when it turns into a paved road, you have all that area to the three corners, that's city jurisdiction, and then in the houses, the three houses out on the point there, that's roughly 85 acres of wildland urban interface. We had in 2007 a large brush fire in there, if you guys remember, that actually took over that whole area, that whole vast area. It burnt that whole area.
How big an area is that?
That's 85 acres, sir. The state park. The state park is a state area, but we cover some of that jurisdiction, and we'll get into here in a second that we also run mutual aid inside that jurisdiction. But the state park that we have in our area is roughly 105 acres of area that we have, and you can see the limited access and restricted areas that we wouldn't be able to get an engine in. Bay Boulevard, if you guys go down Bay Boulevard, not too far before you get to Bay Park Drive, on the right-hand side, there's a vast area of woods inside that area. That actually burnt 2 or 3 years ago inside that area. It has the limited access areas there. Of course, our well fields, we incorporated that. Took a picture of the engine there. It's a pretty sharp turn for that engine to go in. The GVWR of that truck's roughly 42,000 pounds. So it can follow on that paved area right there, but coming off that paved area will be a little difficult for that engine, and we don't want to get it stuck. Oakleaf and Conger Street, this is known as also the Wimpy property inside that area. That goes back inside there. That area, it also, we butt up to Pine Hill Road of that wood area, is roughly 28 acres from what we found on the tax appraiser's website. Ritchie Drive, everybody's familiar with this one. This is where you guys are talking about the reference of putting the road through there. That's an undeveloped area. That burns quite often inside that area. It's trails set up. It already had trails inside of it, and there's trails for us to be able to get inside that area. Weight restricted areas. Our engine can only get inside certain areas with that GVWR. The weight restricted area you'll see here is on Eptide Lane. This is the path. If you guys go down that path, they weren't able to get down. The Limit Drive, limited access area, another culvert pipe inside that area. Special events. Currently, the Port Richey Fire Department utilizes a UTV from local business when it's available. That UTV that we have available for us doesn't have any kind of fire suppression or EMS transport capabilities. So we literally just get there with our equipment, help them, and then have to carry them out. So it just gets us to them a little bit quicker. Used for July 4th, fireworks and waterfront district events, 5Ks, Easter egg hunt, Santa in the Park, Halloween events. Mutual aid. Mutual aid's called into us quite often. We utilize mutual aid a lot inside of our jurisdiction, just because of our, we run one engine, so on a structure fire, fire alarm, or anything like that, the county, Newport just sends mutual aid. Our partner and Warner Boyce Salt Springs State Park is not allowed to transport people on any of their vehicles. So they have no means of transporting a person out of that state park. So we could be utilized for mutual aid for them. The city of Newport Richey currently has a UTV, but it only has EMS capabilities. So that patient transport area is the only area it has. Assisting other departments, the City of Port Richey Building Department for inspection of the construction site, survey of potential development areas, post-storm events. City of Port Richey Police Department for search of lost and endangered children or adults, assisting in patrol in limited access areas. We have our mission statement, which you can read on there, and then we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Very nice presentation. Okay. Comments from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
According to your data, it appears that there's approximately one brush fire per year in the last 10 years. Is that correct?
No, sir, it's 10.8 a year.
Oh, 10.8 a year.
10.8 a year.
Okay. And out of that 10.8 per year, how have those brush fires been handled?
With our response and mutual aid response. Currently, Pasco County on all of our brush fires responds a brush truck to our area. The closest brush truck currently, I do believe, is in Hudson. But that's if that truck's not tied up on a fire itself. So currently we use Pasco County.
And have all those brush fires been successfully treated?
Yeah, I mean, we extinguish the fire because that's our job.
Yeah.
As we go in there, we with the assistance of the Florida Forest Service. So we'll respond, and then the Florida Forest Service will come and what they call cut a fire line around the fire and let it burn to those lines.
This is where somebody's coming.
So up until tonight, you have the capability with assets perhaps from other entities to handle the brush fires that have taken place over the last 10 years?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
The acreage you mentioned, Eptide Lane, 85 acres somewhere.
Roughly 80 acres of Eptide Lane. It's a bird sanctuary.
Okay. My point is this, and that was a great presentation, and I love you guys, but 70 gallons is not going to put out much.
So no, this is what this is meant to do, is for us to give an immediate response to the fire, to combat or knock down that head of that fire. On most brush fires, it's called an indirect attack. So what you'll do is you'll come from the flanking side of a fire and flank the fire up to the head of the fire. So you're trying to stop that head by knocking down that head with your 70 gallons of water, and then coming in and so-called mopping up your flanking areas. So that's what that area would be used for. So roughly at 70 gallons, we flow 20 gallons a minute on brush fires, anywhere between 10 to 20 gallons a minute on a brush fire, not on a structure fire. Arc is what we flow. Structure fires are completely different. Those are a lot, you're talking about 150 to 200 gallons a minute. So this would be able to allow us to combat and do that initial knockdown on that fire, to where we can respond to the scene, make the quick knockdown on the fire, fill it back up and go in there. Because right now, we have to wait on Pasco County coming in or another agencies.
What about your fire truck?
We do go out there, but for instance, if you look on the Betty and Green Street area, that's quite a vast response to lay a lot of line and a lot of friction loss, and it would take a plethora amount of time for us to drop a line inside that area. Not that it wouldn't be done, we'd get it done, but.
How many feet of line do you have off your?
It depends on what you're talking about, sir.
On your fire truck?
So a supply line, which supplies a fire truck, we have 1,000 feet. We have 3 200-foot pre-connected attack lines. So those are the attack lines that roughly flow 150 to 200 gallons a minute. That's what we have on side of our fire truck.
I'm not trying to pose you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just real quick. Did we ever look at taking the Chemtex unit and possibly mounting it on one of the new Hummers that we just?
That was actually part of our discussion.
Because it seems like we just got those units and they can go everywhere that can go.
And that is correct. This one has a little bit, of course, the UTV would be a little bit more narrow than what the Hummer would be. So if you look on like the Eptide Lane, I don't know if we could get a Hummer over that culvert pipe in Eptide Lane. How was that? Excuse me, mountain, yeah. And the weight of the Hummer. I'm not sure what the GVWR is of a
So
Hummer.
that's just limiting one access point possibly throughout the city.
But
Something
even
that
your
we
Betty and Green Street, all your other areas, I would think what would concern me, and I mean anybody that knows, understands the Hummers, is the footprint of the Hummer is what would concern me, is how wide a Hummer is you're gonna need a wide trail for a Hummer to go down.
Basically take the canals there.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So we have given that consideration and you decided that's a no-go on that?
In the limited access areas, it's about the same footprint and weight as the fire engine. You know, minus the water. I mean, it's going to be very close.
I wouldn't say it's the same weight because we carry 1,000 gallons of water, but the wide footprint is what's going to concern me. We haven't measured it out, but it would. Most of the trails, I mean, this doesn't really show. Actually, I wish I could take some people out there.
Yeah.
The trails are very narrow trails, and some of them have overgrowth. So now you're talking about a height requirement too.
Keep all four wheels turning.
Huh?
You gotta keep all four wheels turning. What we got at public in a minute?
Well, I have one question about this Eptide Lane property that you're referring to, 80 acres. It's my understanding the county purchased that. Does that affect how the fires are approached?
No, because it's still within inside city jurisdiction.
I'm sorry, the 70 gallons of water just doesn't seem like it's gonna be that. Can the council use that for deer hunting? But no, and on a serious note, have you thought about maybe a sump pump? If you're out on Eptide Lake, you could throw something in the Gulf and blow a lot more water.
So we do have a floating pump that we can put in. The problem is that a lot of those canals that you guys are referencing, first of all, salt water. So you're gonna tear up the impellers and stuff in there, so you're gonna need a fresh water flush and take care of them. The other side of it too, takes certain inches of water to be able to draft from it, because that's what you're doing, drafting from that stagnant water source. So depending on the tide, if the tide's low, you're obviously not gonna be able to draft. If the tide's high, you'll be able to draft.
If I might, I'd like to remind you that the purchase of a UTV will be coming from fire impact fees. It can only be used for issues relating to our fire department. They're not coming from ad valorem funds per se, they're coming from fire impact fees. An equal amount of money was budgeted for a different purpose, so there'll be a net, approximately a net neutral change. There's no change whatsoever in the budget, and it'll be, again, out of fire impact fees.
Okay, let me have the public's response. Wow. I'll go with this gentleman back here. He's been raising his hand. I don't want you to get a rotator cuff.
I've built this equipment for years.
Okay.
And I don't agree with much else you come up with tonight, but I do agree with you, 70 gallons. That's an inadequate amount of water. First of all, you got a pump that's 85 gallons a minute. He wants to run it at 20, and I'm not being derogatory. I love the fire department, but I just disagree with your concept here. Yeah, I understand that. 70 gallons of water is inadequate. The brush trucks that we build, like he alluded to, are usually on a 4x4. Now, you're not gonna get it in the same place, but you can't be all things to all people. Where's the biggest bang for the buck? Where do you get the biggest benefit for the city? That's when you can haul more gallons. So I think you're wasting your money. Do you need something? Yes, but I would recommend something more like a brush.
Rethinking it.
Like a 4x4. That's what I built for most counties. Most fire departments.
Anyone?
Sir, can you say your name and address for the record?
Tom Snackenberg, I live in Harbor Isle. So.
Okay, I suppose we can decide whether we want that, or would you like to speak, officer? Oh, no, he's coming this way. Thank you, sir. Next, Claudia.
Claudia Smith, 7335 Candlelight Court. I am so pro police department and fire department, because if you've ever had an emergency, if you have ever had a fire, if you have ever had anything of that nature and you need those guys, you don't care what they arrive on, you just want them to arrive. So anything they need, I think you need to figure it out. And if it's not even gonna affect our taxes, we're gonna get it paid for. Come on, that's a no-brainer. Let's give these guys what they need. You're getting ready to increase our citizen base. We need to protect everyone. Give the guys what they need. Thank you.
What if they got squirt guns?
I don't care, if that puts out the fire when I need them.
It ain't gonna be enough. Okay. Tom Brown.
Oh, Jesus.
Thomas Brown, 7436 Candlelight Court. I believe those four-wheel drive, high road clearance Hummers will go places the UTV can't. When it comes to culvert pipes or brush alongside the road, it's not going to stop the Hummer. I think the Hummer should be equipped for emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, can you cross-use any of these things for your department?
I'm sure we could probably use it in certain situations, but it's,
Okay. I'm just wondering if it had multiple uses. I have Sandy Spaulding.
How about?
And Jerry, you're next. I'm sorry.
19?
could possibly help with water in the medians, just saying.
19 medians? 19.
I like that idea. Give me something to work with.
Oh, I am. Sandra Spalding, 8612 Green Street. I don't make anything to push what I make in front of the council. However, we have how many more residents moving in here? And there's gonna be some tight places for our firemen to get into. If they want this, why not? It's their money that's allotted to them. It's not coming out of your budget. Why give them a hard time? We could use it, we need it. God forbid your house was on fire and it was in the back someplace and they had to get through an alleyway, they have the thing to do it. I'm gonna leave you with that. Did I say enough or you want me to say some more? I have some more time. We need our fire department, we use them. They're right there for emergencies and fires. Let's give them the respect they need and give them what they need. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I think we're trying to give them what they need. We're just trying to make sure it's what they need.
It's what they need.
Come in.
Bill Colovo, 7810 Chestnut Street. I can certainly see the need for a small vehicle in our city. If it were multi-use, and I believe you were alluding to that, I can certainly see that that could be an asset to the city. There are a lot of places that if a small vehicle can get into and get into there quickly, whether it's a fire department, police department, or search and rescue or whatever, I see a benefit to that. I would allow, though, that I understand it's budgeted funds and it's coming from impact fees and penny for Pasco, but it's still tax dollars, folks. You know,
No matter how you look.
you know, it's monies that would go elsewhere had they not be going here. But again, they are budgeted funds that are available. So I would not necessarily be against this. I would only add that my experience from business, and we used to have to do fire safety, life safety code and all that, and I dealt a lot with fire departments, and one of the rules of thumbs always was that the quicker you can get out of fire, the better. If a fire starts and somebody sees a puff of smoke, and this thing can get out there with 70 gallons and stop a fire that's 5 feet around, which in 20 minutes is gonna be 150 feet around, it may work. I don't know, I'm not a firefighter, but I'm just saying, that's just opinions and observations.
Thank you. Wait, Jerry, you wanted to talk.
Cut this one short.
I'm Jerry Griffin, 7638 Beaver Circle. In regards to the vehicle they're asking for, I think I'm actually going to ask a question, and that being, wouldn't that vehicle be able to transport hose out?
I addressed
Continue
Jerry.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm asking him a question.
Okay, come closer, but you
vehicle-
still gotta address the chair.
Okay. So my question is, the vehicle that they're wanting to buy, will that vehicle be able to transport additional hose out into the field to hook up and extend further and further out to get to the brush fire that's further out into the field? That brush fire that he was speaking of was behind my house. I believe it was 2008, 2009. It got real close and we saw a lot of sparks coming our way. There was no access back there with any kind of truck whatsoever. Had you had that four-wheel vehicle, 70 gallons is not what I would count on.
Yeah.
I would count on transporting additional hose.
Don't they have to get across the water? How you're at?
Well, yes, it would have, but the sparks can fly across the water. They don't swim. So,
The fire,
that's all, I'm sorry.
the fire he's alluding to was a fire that I do believe it was actually the year my son was born, 2010. That acreage brought up, and it went over into that area. So it's burning up to that line. In reference to the truck that has the higher gallons of water and stuff like that, Mayor and Council, we try to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And we often say, hey, you know what, maybe we just can't afford to do this because we don't have the abilities like other agencies do. The truck that he's referring to that they build in Ocala, wherever, is called a brush truck, Wildman truck, type 3, 2, whatever, engines. And those engines do carry a lot more water and do pump a lot more GPM. But with that come a roughly price tag about $150,000 to $200,000. That is a lot of money that we just don't have compared to where I think this total project cost is roughly $19,000, $20,000. And that's us capable of attacking the fire going out there. The pump has a maximum capacity of 65 gallons of water. Our fire, 65 gallons a minute. That's how much water that pump could pump. That doesn't mean you're always pumping 65 gallons a minute. Our fire truck currently right now has a 1,500 GPM, 1,500 GPM pump capacity. That means how much water is the maximum water that truck can pump. That doesn't mean you're going to be flowing 65 gallons of water. Depending on your nozzle size and your hose size will depend on how much water you're going to flow. So of course, we're not going to buy a nozzle. The nozzle that comes with it comes with the nozzle. And the 1-inch hose only has a critical circumference. So as much hose can fit through, as much water can fit through a 1-inch line, I do believe the limit to this is roughly 15 to 20 gallons a minute. So you couldn't get that.
Mayor, can I ask you a quick question? So this UTV can do what Mr. Griffith said, it would be able to take hose out into the woods and
It's not only going to
do
take
that?
hose, but say we get out there and we run a supply line. So we run a 3-inch line out to the fire. The 3-inch line will be able to connect to the pump in this UTV and have an unlimited supply of water. And now we only have to run one hose out there, and now we have the ability to do that. So that's what the other part is. It's going to have an intake on it. These pumps have intakes on them. They don't just, you just don't fill up with water and that's the water you get. So what typically happens, just like on a structure fire, you pull up, you start combating water, and then people bring a supply line out to you, which is one line, instead of running multiple lines.
Now, can this four-wheel ATV, can it drag the other line with you when you go out with the 16?
You could do that, but again, trying to be fiscally responsible and take care of what we have. We don't buy fire hose that often. We wouldn't want to drag it, but we could definitely, what we could do is fill the back of the ATV up with hose. This way, when we get there, you can start throwing it out when you get on the way back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was kind of imagining that if you're going to some remote place, that it would be worthwhile to, you're saying dragging it could hurt the.
Yeah, we could. Well, exactly. We'll just couple it as we go. We wouldn't necessarily drag it, but we wouldn't. We could couple it as we go. Yes, sir. So what we could do is keep the hose on the truck, and then we could throw a stick out, 50-foot area, a 50-foot section of hose, drive up, and the person could be driving and simultaneously dropping off sections of hose while one person just going behind and screwing it with 2 guys. We make do with our 2-man personnel.
Okay. It's making a little more sense.
Yes, sir. Again, like I said, trying to be conservative to where we can combat an initial attack on a fire. We're not looking to put the whole brush fire out with this truck, with this UTV. We're looking to be at a knockdown on the head.
Okay.
I do believe it was Mr. Colombo said, the quicker you can get to a fire, quicker. So maybe that fire is only a 10 by 10 or a 1 acre slow-moving fire. You can do that because this is also going to have tools on this fire. On all wildland fires, we don't use water on every wildland fire. We keep shovels and rakes on theirs because you remove the fire from the fuel, fire goes out.
Okay. You turned the drone back in?
Oh,
Never bought
sir,
it.
we never bought the drone.
Never bought it?
We never bought the drone.
Okay.
We're just asking to reallocate the money. Instead of purchasing a drone, sir, that was budgeted, we're just asking to use the funds for a UTV.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem, sir.
Any more questions? Any more public? Dan? Let's limit it as quickly as we can. We're gonna be here.
Dan, Mallet Drive. I say give the fire department what they want. How much is it? What's it all gonna cost?
$14,000.
14 grand?
You got it? Some of the
He's got
money.
it. Dude, I've been here for a long time. Every year I hear the same crap. We're going broke, the city's going under. Well, we're still here.
Yeah.
Give the cops what they want, give the fire department what they want. They're the main dudes. Some people are getting paid way too much work here, right, Chris? You know how much you make. Way too much. Somebody's
Hey,
doing it
all
there
right.
now.
Hey,
I have the right to speak, don't I?
you have the right to speak,
You
but I'm
guys
not gonna
work
allow
for
that
us.
here.
We don't work for you.
I understand that, but you're in my room and
I
you're not
understand
gonna
that, but we elected you. You didn't elect us.
go on.
Okay, but anyway, give them what they want. They're the ones that do really good. I tell you one thing, if my house is on fire, I sure hell would want them to come more than a guy that's holding a shovel and telling somebody what to do. Cop, you need a cop, they're there for us.
Thank you.
I don't need a shovel man to watch and make good money. Right on, dude.
A little more.
Okay, bring it back to council.
Mr. Mayor, make a comment?
Yeah.
We have the celebration in the park coming up on Saturday, and every year we borrow one of these vehicles.
Are we gonna
And
have it in
borrow them-
time?
We,
Yes.
if we purchase this, we'll have it in time. We haven't set up to borrow any from anybody yet, but every year we have one of these on site, and we borrow them from other agencies, so we do use it.
Mayor, may I say something?
Yes, sir, please.
We are into the state of Florida right now to get them to approve our landscaping islands out on US 19.
That's
Part of that requirement is for 2 years to maintain water coverage for them. The city of Newport Richey contracted with a group that had a water truck to come water the plants every so often, however it's done. This truck could do the very same thing. Allowing us, Chris, whoever does that type thing, so it makes sense. I believe we probably would pay that amount for a water truck for water for 2 years.
How many gallons do you use for each median?
We don't water the medians right now, so I couldn't tell you that.
Well, we're going to, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't-
it depends.
Depends on what kind of.
That's right. It depends on landscaping, what's in there and what eventually gets there.
Don't come to me for a fire truck of water. What?
Let's just motion to approve the Kawasaki UTV and the Camtech light unit.
Right on.
Second.
Please, please. Are you gonna get to meet the police chief? Do I have a second?
You got a second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I think it will cross, and you did a good job getting me to go on this one. We could cross-use it. I think it's reasonable. Anybody problems? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good job, ma'am.
Just a quick comment, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Our fire department needs a building, so $14,000 for a little truck is nothing.
As long as I see use, that drone, you didn't get me, I
Okay.
couldn't get on that.
Item number 2. Yes, sir.
2, comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR. They got an acronym for everything. Is it Mr. Schultz? Yes. He's smiling. We must still have money.
That's correct. It's a pleasure delivering the annual audit of the city of Fort Ritchie. With your finance staff have prepared this full, the CAFR report, comprehensive annual financial report. It has a lot of financial demographic information in it that is very useful. In the interest of time, I will only review what I consider the highlights.
Reader's Digest.
Yes, sir. And so,
Thanks, sir.
yes, I'll wait 1 minute.
What page are we gonna start on?
If you go to the Truth page 1, which is after all of the introductory information, it'll say Independent Auditor's Report. Great, great. Thank you. Okay. As I said, we performed a complete audit of the city for the last fiscal year. It was conducted in accordance with applicable auditing standards. that include the financial auditing standards and the government auditing standards. So there were 2 levels of required audit procedures. What you seek in an audit is a clean, unmodified opinion that states that the financial statements are an accurate reflection of how the city stood at the end of the year, what transpired financially during the year. You have that highest level of assurance, which is a good reflection on the quality of the financial records and practices of the city. The next section, beginning on 3, management's discussion and analysis, with some required overview information on the city, but in the interest of, due to the fact that it is derived from the financial statements, in the interest of time, I will go directly to the pertinent financial statements, the first one being on page 24. The city, being a government, operates under fund accounting principles. There has 2 types of funds. It has the governmental funds and the proprietary enterprise fund. So this is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. The city has 3 governmental funds: a general, CRA, and capital improvement. The general being the main fund of the city. Fund statements are oriented toward cash. The total assets of the governmental funds were $4,677,594 of that, and the general fund was $3,243,558. The total liabilities of these funds, $920,661. The fund balances are cash reserves, and the total reserves were $3,722,964. And if you look at the number, the equivalent number for the prior year, that is an increase in total reserves of $595,907. If you look over at the bottom of the first column, which is the general fund column, and you look at the unassigned fund balance, it is up to with $1,524,174, and it is an increase from the prior year, and it is now up to approximately 3 months of expenditures. So you are increasing that reserve. You're aiming at, of course, 3 to 6, but it did increase in this year. The next statement on page 26 is the revenue and expenditure statement for these funds. The total revenues were $5,848,671. Total expenditures were $5,252,764. And at the overall, the excess revenue over expenditure was $595,907. And in the prior year, you were basically breaking even at $115,958. So the excess added to reserves increased $480,000 in this 1 year, and it added to that increased reserve. So very commendable for the governmental funds. The next statement on page 28 is the equivalent balance sheet of the enterprise funds. You have 2 enterprise funds. You have water and sewer and the stormwater utility. Enterprise funds, because their intent is to operate off of user charges, uses business accounting principles. So the balance sheet is called the statement of net position. But again, a snapshot financial view of these funds at the end of the fiscal year. The total assets, the $13,293,092. And your substantial assets or your capital assets, the total liabilities, $3,565,960. The net position is the net worth of these funds, and the total is $9,727,132. And if you look at the unrestricted portion, which was $1,285,144, it's approximately equivalent to the unassigned fund balance in general fund, and it again is close to the 4 months of your enterprise fund expenses. And it again, when you look at the $1,285,000 compared to the prior year $861, it is an increase of $722,000. So between the two funds, you increased your reserves around $1.2 million. So you are substantially stronger at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year, and you've continued the trend of increase in reserves, and which is good. The next statement on page 29 is the revenue and expense statement for these funds. And again, the intent is to operate off of user charges. So the revenue was $3,599,605. The expenses, which includes depreciation, which is not a cash expense, $3,506,724. We had some interest and some other items, but in this year, before the impact fees, you operated basically even, $7,276. But in this 1 year, the enterprise impact fees were $715,659, whereas in the prior year they were like $12,000. So you had an amazing year collecting impact fees. And obviously, in the after the structures are built, those will become customers, which will be good for your system. So again, you increase the net position $722,935. Okay, the next statement is on page 30, and it is the statement of cash flows. Because enterprise fund statements are based on accrual accounting, I say this kind of shows you the change in the enterprise checkbook during the year. And the key number, which is around 6 numbers up from the bottom in the total column, is that the cash balance actually increased $1,044,327, which goes along with the prior statement, because you had a profit of $700,000, you had $300 in depreciation, so it's about $1 million in actual cash that you increased.
Considering the past, how would you rate this?
Improved substantially.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to lose your attention. I got a few more things. Okay, after that are notes and disclosures. On page 42 is a table that has your capital asset. On 42 is for the governmental kind of general fund. The capital assets at cost $14,101,248. The accumulated depreciation. Depreciation is an expense that is not writing checks, but it's when you use up equipment and your infrastructure. $6,019,749. Net assets $8,081,000. Your general fund assets are about 42% depreciated, and I would say that that's about average for the cities of your size, of which I'm aware. Cities are starting to get over the 50%, but you're still in the 40 range. And so how you keep that percent is to replace assets.
Does the depreciation relate to the vehicles or whatever?
Yeah, and it's, it's clear, the vehicle that you approved for $20,000, you paid the $20,000, but every year you're going to use up X% of it, and it's a calculated depreciation expense, but it's not cash outflow, but then, of course, in the end, you'll have to replace it. So depreciation is a calculation of using up the capital assets.
What percent does he come to me and ask for money? Where that, I'm serious. Just need to know these things.
Yeah, so, the ideal thing is when you have adequate reserves, and they call it funding depreciation. So in your budget every year, you would, just like the general fund depreciation is almost $1 million a year. So if you were really stable and had your funding sources right, you would try to fund that, put it in a replacement reserve every year, so that when you needed something, you could just write a check and you wouldn't have to get debt.
That's my kind of deal.
Okay. Then for the enterprise assets on page 43, they're about 46% used up. And so I see if you're under the 50%, you're still in probably the average range. Okay. At the bottom is the debt for general fund. The total debt at the end of the year was $955,238. The general fund debt decreased $250,000 in this year, so you're reducing debt, and that's good. At the top of page 44 is a table that shows the enterprise debt at the end of the year, $2,510,181. It decreased about $123,000. So in this year, you decreased debt about $375,000, which again is good, and that helps you build reserves.
What does that debt do to? Is it bonds?
Okay, yes, it's bond issues. The general, the substantial amount, I think, is the debt on this building, and then you have some capital leases for equipment. The debt in the enterprise is on your bond issues. So I would say financially, you had a successful year. You built reserves, you reduced the debt, and you were better off at the end of the year in all funds than you were at the start of the year.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, so if I could direct you to page 87. As I mentioned, we were required to do audit procedures required by government auditing standards. These go beyond financial issues and include internal control of the financial reporting, compliance with laws, regulations, policies, and procedures of the city. This is our report. It is a clean, unmodified report with no findings or questioned costs. On page 89 is the management letter required by rules of the Auditor General of Florida. In it, we would include findings that are not material to the financial statements, but areas with which we wish to make you aware. We always look at the status of prior year findings and any new findings. There are no reportable findings in the prior year, no reportable findings in the current year. The annual report filed electronically with the state that keeps you in compliance with Florida statutes, agrees with the audited financial statements. We determined that the city had not met any of the conditions described in Florida statutes that might result in a financial emergency. We did financial condition assessment procedures. I've given you the highlights of those. Right. Had no other issues. On page 90.
Sir, before you move on, may I just reiterate one of your statements in this document?
Yes, sir.
For the benefit of Mr. Colombo. Prior year findings, there were no reportable findings in the prior year. Current year findings, there were no reportable findings in the current year. Is that correct?
It is, sir.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
Okay. On page 91 is we're required by Florida statutes to perform audit procedures regarding the investment of public funds. We did that, and we had no findings regarding the the city's investment in public funds. As always, we appreciate working with the city and your financial staff, and you are very fortunate to have a very good financial staff and city management staff.
I appreciate that.
And it makes our job easier.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to see you every year. You're getting smilier, too.
Right.
Mr. Schatzel, you must be next. Am I correct? Good to see you, Pete.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Peter Schatzel with the firm of Wells, Hauser and Schatzel in St. Petersburg, Florida. Your audience is being double teamed by accountants this evening. And, the purpose of my visit this evening is to report on the results of the first 6 months of operations for the city from the period of October 1st through March 31st, 2018. The report that I will be speaking from, I don't know if you had received that had been emailed to you earlier.
Jackie?
The report has a lot of numbers on it. It's a very condensed financial report. What I'd like to do is, if I could take you through the format initially, I think it might make it a little bit easier for you to follow, follow along with some of my comments. But the first column shows your budget for the entire year. So for the general fund, which is the first page, you budgeted $4,489,000 in revenues, and you budgeted $891,000 of expenditures. So your approved budget for the general fund, you actually approved that you were going to be spending more than you were going to be taking in, which means that you're spending some of your prior year reserves. And you had anticipated spending down those reserves by about $400,000. In the second column is the budget for 6 months. And doing a 6-month report, it makes it pretty easy because it's half of the annual budget. And so on a 6-month basis, your budgeted deficit would be around $201,000. And now I'll bring you to the next column, which is the actual. So the actual column is the results of monies, the revenues that have been received for the first 6 months, and the expenditures for the first 6 months. And the revenues were $2.8 million, and the amount that you expended was $2,577,000, which equates to your revenues exceeding your expenditures by $222,000. So you, on a cash in and cash out, you had income, so to speak, of $222,000. The format that I use is, if you keep in mind that the amount that you are receiving from your ad valorem taxes, you get that in the early part of the year. It starts coming in, you get it during the month, about 2 months into your year. So from the period like towards the middle of December through January and February, you're collecting the bulk of your ad valorem taxes. What that does is, in looking at a 6-month statement, it's somewhat distorted because you have received a lot of that revenue up front. So what I have done in this presentation is the far right-hand column is where I have, if you were to have received the ad valorem taxes that had been budgeted evenly throughout the year, so not all coming in the early part, but being received somewhat ratably over the year, what that would mean is your revenues would be about $2.2 million for the first 6 months, and your expenditures would be expenditures would be a total of $2,369,000, which equates to a loss of about $128,000. I think that's important in looking at from a couple of standpoints. Number one, even at a $128,000 loss, it's less than what you budgeted, because you budgeted for about a $200,000 loss for the first 6 months. And the other, I guess the other part that I want to make is that you, and this is true in all local governments, is that the monies that you received on those ad valorem taxes, you're basically needing to put them in reserve because you're using that basically to take you through the last 6 months of the year. So the point I'm making is that you are on target to have a loss, but not a loss as much as you had budgeted. You would be on target to have around a $250,000 loss in the general fund, whereas you budgeted a $400,000 loss. Moving on to the CRA fund, and with the CRA fund, as well as for the Penny for Pasco fund, when you look at the results of operations, you have a lot more control over the monies that are being expended in those two funds. So when looking at a 6-month statement, it isn't as, I guess it isn't as valuable as looking at a 6-month statement for the general fund. Because in the general fund, you really aren't able to control your revenues and your expenditures are fixed. But in looking at the CRA fund, you had budgeted a deficit of $422,000 in the CRA fund. I'm on page 2 of this document now.
Yeah.
And the so for the first 6 months, you would expect a loss of about $211,000. Looking at the actual results through the end of March in the CRA fund, the revenues are $966,000, and what has been expended is $742,000. So your income is about $223,000.
Excuse me, just at the top, in revenues, ad valorem and ad valorem city share. What is city share mean? That of the CRA?
The revenues of $550,000, ad valorem, that's the money that is actually coming from Pinellas County. They're giving up Pasco County, excuse me. The county is actually giving up some of their tax increment.
That's what makes up the CRA.
That's from the 2004 CRA?
Yes.
Right, for the CRA.
Okay.
And then
Yes.
the $415,000 is that the amount of ad valorem taxes that is collected in the general fund. There's a formula that is used basically where you calculate if there's been an increment in the ad valorem taxes for the CRA, and that increment has to go from the general fund to the CRA, Mayor, and that's the $415,000.
Got it.
Our portion.
One of the major expenditures that you had in the CRA during the first 6 months was there was almost $458,000 that had been spent on dredging. Without knowing how much more dredging you are going to be doing for the last 6 months of the year, it's somewhat difficult to project where you're going to end up with the CRA fund. If you complete all the projects that you had intended, you know, then you would be at a deficit of 422,000. And I think it's important, and I think it's important, you know, important for the taxpayers to know that there's nothing wrong with having a budgeted deficit if you have accumulated sufficient reserves and you feel that you're able to spend down those reserves in an effort, you know, to basically so that you don't have to increase ad valorem taxes. It ends up, you know, saving the taxpayers money by spending down those prior reserves. So I don't want to give the connotation when I'm talking about losses that a loss, if it's anticipated and planned, you know, I don't regard that as a negative. It's when you have unplanned, unanticipated losses that you know, that's when you have to start getting concerned about it. In the penny for Pasco, the income, there was an excess of monies received versus money spent by $163,000. And I think was, when you look at the importance of your funds, I think you have to look at the general fund, which is your operating fund, which is very critical at looking at the results, and the water and sewer fund is you know, your second largest fund. And I'm pleased to report on the water and sewer fund that looking at the actual column now for the water and sewer fund on the third page, the revenues for the first 6 months were $1.67 million. The monies that were expended were $1.5 million. So there was $165,000 of income. And it's important to note that in arriving at that $165,000 of income is that you have recognized asset depreciation, and that amount was $210,000. I mention that because, as was explained to you just a moment ago by Richard Powell, the amount of that asset depreciation is a non-cash expense. So that $165,000 profit is coming after that $200,000 of depreciation. The amount of revenues were about $55,000 under budget, which is I think that's fairly close. And looking at the expenditures were $253,000 under budget. So I have a long history with the city of Port Richey in regards to your water and sewer fund. Some of you can remember, if you go back to 2010, 2011, 2012, you had a deficit in the water and sewer fund. It was dragging down the general fund, and it was creating a hazardous financial condition for you. And I'm pleased to report that has completely turned around. You now have a very healthy fund balance in that water and sewer fund.
There you go, Matt.
The fourth page, I think it might be of some interest to you. I'm reporting all of the cash balances for all of the funds on this page. And the cash balances as of March 31st in total were $6.96 million. It's important to know that of that $6.9 million, approximately $2.5 million of that cash can only be spent on certain specified purposes. So we have $570,000 that has to be spent on highway improvements or road improvements. The money that has been collected on police and fire impact fees of $176,000, was discussed earlier this evening. It has to be spent on police and fire. The money, there's $971,000 of cash that is currently in the Penny Pasco fund. And in light of the amount of water and sewer impact fees that you collected in 2017, the combined water and sewer improvement impact fees that are restricted are about $576,000. So those impact fees have to be spent on water and sewer improvements. It cannot be used. That $576,000 cannot be used for operations.
Okay, so we have to do a jujitsu move on the paper.
To sum up, when you take the $6.9 million of cash in your various accounts compared to the $2.4 million that's restricted, that does leave you with an unrestricted cash balance of $4,481,000. If the history on this page goes back to March 31st of 2012, and at that point in time, the unrestricted cash was about $1.5 million. And that was back when you were in really dire straits financially. I'm just about done. This last page shows you what the fund balances are as of March 31st. This was something that you had asked me about a year or two ago, Mayor, and so I'll continue to present this. But in looking at the general fund, through March 31st, the total fund balance is $2,276,000. So it has come down, but the calculation that I have made here, again, it is almost it's not taking your actual results. It's taking the results if you were receiving the ad valorem on a pro rata basis. But again, you still have a strong reserve in the general fund, and in the water and sewer fund, rolling forward to March 31st, the fund balance that's unrestricted is approximately $1.5 million. So in 6 months, that unrestricted balance in the water and sewer fund improved by about $376,000. So
Looks like we're doing a good job.
Excuse me?
Looks like we're doing a good job.
Yes.
If I go back to 2012, we've got a loss of $1.3 million. We're up to $1.4 million.
Well, I won't go into a lot of detail, but one of the reasons why you are doing better than anticipated in that water and sewer fund is that you have purchased a lot less water than what you had budgeted for.
Yeah, we have.
And also, you're not relying on having to hire you're not hiring as many consultants to assist you in running the water and sewer fund. So you've saved a very large sum on that as well. I know in addition to somewhat of a late hour, there's a lot of information here, and I welcome any questions that you might have.
Give us a grade.
Well, I think when you're looking at your financial statements for a city of your size, I'd say like you're probably like a B+.
Okay.
Always tell my professors A- is. Okay, thank you though.
Thank you, Mr. Schatzel.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes. Okay, we must have something left. We are at, please tell me. Dogs at the bar? I know where's the second reading. Now we got the fireworks. Okay. You want to read that and go to public?
Yeah, I'll do the reading and then open for
We'll
discussion.
read
or
that,
whatever.
let you all have your
Hello?
day.
This is the second reading by title only of ordinance number 18-661, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Richey, Florida, amending Chapter 14 of the Port Richey Code by adding a new Article 6 entitled, quote, Minimum Standards for Residential Dwellings, and, quote, providing for penalties and fines, severability, and an effective date. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, a motion to approve in a second. Sorry.
You call for it, but now we're discussion first, probably discussion first.
We want to discuss up here or let the citizens out there?
What do we want to do?
Would you like me to go to the public first? Okay.
Well, they're here.
You were the first. Go. I don't know you, ma'am. Do I? No.
Hello, everyone. I'm Caitlin Overbeck. I live in Harbor Isles also. I just recently moved there.
I do know.
We just found out about this, so I would like to know what the purpose is. Like, what is the reasoning behind this ordinance? Like, what is the main motivating factor? Like, why are we doing this?
Does anybody want to take, I'll take it, I'll give you the lay version. If you live in Pasco County, you're almost 99% of the people have a minimal standard of living. If you live in the county, you do. If you live in Newport Richey, you do. And some of the citizens were concerned that things just went downhill and there was no teeth in ordinances. That's my best guess. Would anybody like to give her a better answer?
I'll be more than happy to,
Go.
Mayor. So, what's happened here is in certain parts of the city, a number of parts of the city, they're kind of blighted areas.
Can I just, like I said, I've just moved to the city, so can
Okay,
you
so-
elaborate on exactly which areas that we're talking about?
Okay, it's scattered throughout the city, but probably not in your section. Okay.
Okay.
So,
That's what I'm wondering. I don't
if-
know
yeah,
where we're
if-
talking about. I'd like to know where. I mean, I frequent out often, but I'm just curious where. I mean, obviously I can drive by, there's a house here or there that needs to be improved, but I don't know if that's like county ordinance worthy to pass on everybody. That's, I guess I'm trying to figure out where we're gauging this interest for.
well, it's being passed on everybody in conception, but it's not. It's for those people who don't want to take care of their homes, who allow garbage to accumulate in their carports, who use tarps instead of walls, who allow their screens to fall off of their windows and doors. And the code enforcement people have no ordinances to deal with that. I just mentioned a few, something that you probably won't see where you live. And as a result of that, it presents a very unsightly appearance of the city. It harbors rodents. I mean, when you have trash build up, it's not healthy. It diminishes property values to allow mold and mildew to accumulate on structures that can be treated easily with pressure cleaning. And there are a number of other issues. If you take the time and drive around, it's 2.5 square miles.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Where are we? Because like I said, even driving to my house, you can see there are houses that need to be pressure washed. I don't know why people don't do that. Honestly, I have no idea. But sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Ma'am, and the only thing I can tell you is get in your car and take a tour of the city, and you will see those areas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's stay there for a second. Okay, go ahead. You got 3 more minutes. Red, would you come up, please? President Buddy. And the only reason I'm saying this, ma'am, do you know where Garen Angel lives?
Where who?
Garen Angel?
No.
What?
Yes, okay.
Right.
Gavin?
The reason I'm bringing this up, Red, remember that was boarded up with no windows and plywood for
13 months.
13 months?
13 years, rather.
13 years. Yeah.
I don't know where you get a 13-year permit in the city anyway.
What he did was he just kept going back and renewing his permit, and that's how you guys got stuck. And that's why, for the citizens, one of the reasons why these things need to have some teeth.
Okay.
At the same time, we've told everybody, this is not written in stone. If we find something that is way out of whack, you come to us, we'll redo them.
Yeah, and I'm all for cleaning up the county.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, where, you know, and what exactly. Okay, but the next thing is,
13 years.
isn't there like a isn't, like, you can't have garbage, isn't that a county, and we're still in the county even though we're in the city? Can't regular code enforcement come in, or no?
No.
No, okay,
Our
that's,
code
I didn't want to
enforcement
clarify that.
In the city.
Huh?
It's our code enforcement in the city, tell me if I'm wrong. And the county doesn't come here, so we need to have some teeth in some of these rules. If your neighbor's leaving garbage outside, you might not like that. If the pool has snakes in it and got green, you know, I don't think these are onerous in any way. And Newport Richie's is much stricter than this.
Can we maybe, like I said, this is my first time hearing this, can we maybe, like, work through some of these? Because, like, the screens.
No. At this point, I would say no, Jim. No, but let's say this. You, the citizens, find that these things, you don't like this, nobody likes this, and you want it rewritten. We've made it clear that we will rewrite it. This is not for us, it's for you whose neighbor is letting rats and et cetera come in, or boarding up their windows for.
Well, we're asking to rewrite it right now.
What
We're
would you
asking,
rewrite?
I mean, we're not, I mean, I don't even know if I want to rewrite it, but that's what we're asking for. We're asking for input, and you guys are saying no, right now.
You're giving me input. Have you given me anything you want rewritten?
Well, I just brought up the screens. I mean,
Okay.
I don't, like, I have one screen missing on my house right now. I'm gonna be really upset if you were to come and find me for it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not.
Bill, would you answer that? I don't think this is gonna be an automatic. And believe me, I
Yeah.
didn't even.
Well, and who's enforcing it? How much, like, revenue are we expecting from it versus the expense? I mean, I don't really know anything. Have we thought this deep into it, or are we just?
The city
Running
of
into it.
You got another 3 minutes. Maybe we'll get this bundled up.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to come up? Yes, sir. Okay. Red, I just wanted to ask you that because.
Thanks.
Two things, as far as like a can, like a blue cover, get it in 3 minutes.
Oh, did he already get us there? He yielded. And I asked him. I asked him because I want to know, and I want people in Harbor Isles is a very nice place. But in the past 13 years.
If a hurricane hits you, you're looking from Sea Pines down to St. Pete.
Right.
How many blue covers you gonna have?
Right.
For 90, well, not more than 90 days, 2 years. What's the fine in a blue cover over 90 days? You got a figure?
That's what we're going to do right now. Bill, in the
Work
end.
this stuff out, maybe have a workshop on it, you know.
Well, Mike's hi, buddy. Okay, yes, sir.
How you doing? I'm Nick Overbeck, 8100 Brighton Drive. We also new to the area, but concerned and liking the proposed ordinance, but fearful of the proposed ordinance. I think the bones are good. I think most people agree that the bones of it are good, and the city has the best interest of the citizens in mind. The problem is the verbiage that it's written with that brings a lot of concern to people. And I appreciate, Mr. Mayor, you saying nobody's gonna come in your house and check your fire detectors, and you're absolutely right about that. But that also opens doors to Branch Davidian type of things, David Koresh. If my concern is the potential, and do not be offended, I'm a Pasco County deputy. I am the man just as much. I'm gonna accuse the man right now, but the potential governmental shakedown that could ensue from this. If you don't like me tomorrow, because I wanted to say today, and I have 2 pavers out of whack in my house, now I'm getting fined. And also, my next question is, where is this money potentially going? If the fines that will be accrued by this go to buy the fire department a new UTV, I think people would be more behind it. If it goes to the city to do as they please with it and frivolously spend shakedown money, I think that's where a lot of the concerns are. I think it's a good bones written ordinance. I think it leaves a lot open for debate that's not allowed to be debated today and gone through that has people worried.
Well, I'm just gonna give you my reply. When we have workshops, 2 people show up. It's just
I
not,
understand. I
they
understand
don't come.
completely.
So my thought, and the council's, I think, was pass the ordinance. If there's problems, we've said, not written in stone,
Yes,
we
sir.
will address them.
And here's my concern with that.
Right.
The city has deeper pockets than most of the citizens. If I feel that you are shaking me down for money.
We are you.
I'm sorry?
We are you.
I understand. Listen, hear me out. If I feel that you're shaking me down for a $50 compounding ordinance that I don't agree with, now I have to hire an attorney at $10,000 to fight you for $1,000. What am I going to do? I'm going to pay the city ordinance and go fix the problem. That's why I'm saying that's where the concern is.
I understand, and that's why I'm so happy when your blue lights are mine. But if I thought there was, everybody in Pasco County.
And right, once again, I hope you don't think I'm accusing anybody on the board here or anything. I'm saying, as other people have alluded to, the future, the potential future of who may come in, the way they may use the potential law against citizens. And I'm sorry, the fear is of the potential governmental shakedown that may ensue because of a paver or a screen. Or if a hurricane does come, how long is it going to take to get a permit? No less the roof fixed when everybody's roof's gone.
During hurricanes, please.
Can I say a couple of things? First of all, the city had a set of ordinances that dealt with minimum housing. The city had that. Many residents felt that they were inadequate. Not only were the ordinances inadequate, they felt that the actual enforcement was lacking or capricious in some cases.
And I would agree, but there's too much gray area still.
If I may, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And capricious. We have gone just in the opposite direction. At the behest of City Council and of the residents, we have altered the code compliance section, which used to be code enforcement. The object is to bring into some degree of conformity with the legislation the general housing stock and commercial and eventually industrial stock, of the city of Port Richey.
What about bank-owned properties? Will they be held accountable?
Please. And that is the general purpose of these regulations. They weren't to harm anyone. This is not a Gestapo operation. It isn't a armed police invasion of a private residence contrary to the law. Has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is simple code compliance to the orders and legislation passed by this city council. You may agree with it or you may disagree with it. That is entirely your option. Once these laws are promulgated, it becomes my obligation as city manager and my staff's obligation to follow the law. It'll be administered uniformly. It'll be administered fairly. With any new piece of legislation that's passed, there will be problems. Those problems will be brought back to the legislative branch of this government to be addressed. It's as simple as that. The legislation that this council has had on their first reading and is undertaking for the second reading is nothing more than the original City of Port Richey rules, regulations, and ordinance for housing standards, coupled with some upgrades from Pasco County. It's all it simply is. There's no adverse impact with respect to laws. It is law, period, pure and simple. There will be problems with it, as with any new piece of
Why
legislation.
further bind us?
There will be problems with it, with any piece of legislation, once it's implemented. And when we find out what those problems are, we will come back and address them. It's that simple.
And again, if we had put out a workshop, we'd have 2 people here. Now we got all of you.
Like I said, sir,
No point of order. He doesn't.
I don't.
Just sit him down, would you please? Sit down. He can't talk.
Please sit
down. Throw him
down.
out.
Sit down. This is not adversarial, guys. Yes, sir.
We're gonna have order here tonight, folks.
First of all, I don't think anybody in their right mind would not want to address perceived or actual blight. I mean, that'd be crazy. It ruins our values and everything else. My concern is, by your own admission, if there's issues with this, then you're gonna come back to us after you've passed it. So if you perceive that there's gonna be issues, why not table it and talk about it?
I don't think you can find a law that was passed in the history of the United States that there weren't perceived issues.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but if you know that there's a lot of opposition here. See, the problem with this is, in my humble opinion, it's very vague, it's ambiguous, and it's subjective. There's nothing detailed and specific in this, very vague. Gives you a lot of latitude. I want to clean it up.
You want to clean up the
If you know there's going to be problems, why don't we have some conversation?
I'm not against it, but I tell you, nobody ever comes.
Well, why pass an ordinance that you've already seen is going to be controversial?
So far, I haven't seen anything, honestly, that anybody, our screen's off. We're not gonna do that, but if it gets out of whack, it's gotta be addressed. Go ahead, Bill.
Don't bring back people.
Wait, have you already spoken on this?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
You're only allowed one whack at the,
Bill Colombo, 7810 Chesco Street. Remember that part of the argument?
should we get to?
Tell him that before he spoke the first time.
Point of order 2 is that according to city code, the public gets to address every agenda item following council discussion, just for future reference. That's the way it's supposed to work. Regarding the residential maintenance standards, I got a few bullet points here and a suggestion. I'll leave it go with that. The big issue we all have, and a lot of folks have, is no public input. I know you say nobody goes to workshops, but you can say it, people will if they know what's happening. That's my opinion, and I understand your opinion. This particular ordinance is overreaching, intrusive, and really far larger than it needs to be. There's an awful lot of stuff in this ordinance that just doesn't need there. There's no reason why this ordinance should be addressed in anything relating to interior of a residence. If you want to, on rental properties, we can have a separate ordinance. We can do what other cities do, which is make rental properties register with the city. You can inspect the inside, you can inspect the outside, you can say whether they can or can't rent it. You can do that, other cities do it. As well as you could, we should have a separate ordinance, because this apparently excludes commercial properties also. It is subjective. There are no standards written into this code for enforcement to use when deciding when a home needs to be repainted, a sidewalk or driveway needs to be pressure washed, a screen needs to be replaced. This should have been a skinny ordinance to begin with, but it isn't. It is broad, and that is the issue everybody has. Now, this is what I think should have been done. This is my opinion. This is what I think should be done. What should be done is don't pass the ordinance in its present form. I know you know I feel that way, but that's what I think you should do. What you should do is you should form an ad hoc committee. Now, by code, a city council can, by resolution, create an ad hoc committee, advise the city council on a specific matter. Any ad hoc committees committed shall exist for a period not to exceed 120 days. Each committee shall be composed by who you guys pick, including a member of council. Mr. Plume can be a member of that committee. You put 7 to 9 people in a committee. They hold hearings. You don't need workshops. That ad hoc committee holds the hearings. The public comes. Between the public and that committee, they put together a suggestion that everybody has a consensus of, and they bring it back to you. This is a way not to do workshops. This is the way to have a committee group work on this particular issue and come up with a product that is the result of public input, and those who are interested, Mr. Muse could be on it, Mr. Bloom could be on it, and business owners can be on it, and residents could be on it, and hold hearings. Those public that are interested can come, get their input. We hold, a meeting a week for a month. A meeting a week for a month,
I
then
have
come
no
back to
problem
council.
with that, Bill.
So
No,
again,
it's
that's my
up to the
suggestion,
council.
what I think should be done.
Okay.
And I think that'd make a lot of people happy. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Anyone else? Ms. Baldwin? Oh. Nah, he'd rather be last, come on.
Again, Sandra Spalding, 8612 Green Street. We do need a code. This is too open of a code. I worry about people who cannot afford to fix their houses the way this code wants them or the way council wants them. Yeah, I know, go ahead, tell me. We're taking care of that. We're gonna give different grants. That's bull. We all know that's not gonna work, especially if they have to come up with $1,000 to get 1,000. If they had the original 1,000, they'd do the work. I don't feel that this is fair to the public. I think you people are there, yes, to make the laws for us, but because a handful of people wants this to go through and pushes it through immediately, I don't think that's right. I don't feel that's right. I don't feel you're being fair to your residents, but yet, when you guys run for office, Ming, how you love your residents, what you gonna do for us? What are you doing for us? Nothing.
No, we're listening to you. Thank you very much, Ms.
I still have some time.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind. Because a handful of people want something, fine. All the residents want to live here and be happy. Everybody wants to enjoy their city. And most of us have enjoyed our city for how many years?
Long time.
A long time. We like the city the way it is. Yeah, we have some houses that need help. So let's help them.
Okay, cut it down back there, please.
Let's just help the people that need help. But don't have people up here looking down at other people that you want this done, that done. Pretty soon you'll tell us what color we have to paint our houses, because
read
that's
that.
the route we're going. I'm gonna paint mine bright red.
Not
What
bad.
I'm trying to say is, you listen to the people when you're running, every one of you. But now listen to your people while you're up there. Keep looking at the clock, Mr. Mayor. I'll get some more time.
No.
You need to realize the people don't want this the way it is. Work with your people. Have a group, have a committee, as Mr. Colombo said. Work with us. Don't pass something on because you want to get it through. That's not right, and that's not American. Thank you.
Matt?
Matthew Todd, 8301 Congress. Just pass it. Evidently, there's people here, this great big crowd that it's ridiculous. The majority of the people in this city want it. The majority of these people that spoke, they have beautiful houses. It's not going to affect them. It's not. See, they're making comments. They don't live on certain streets that this, it doesn't affect them. If you're painting your house, you're taking care of it. How does it affect you? The county has minimum housing standards. Newport Richey has minimum housing standards. Every city has it. I guess some people can't read. Go on the computer and Google it. It's that simple. This is a political witch hunt for Mr. Colombo after he bankrupted this city with $1.9 million of water that we had to buy that you guys cleaned up. That's all this is. That's all this is. Pass it. Thank you. I want my property value to stay up. And anybody that says anything otherwise, they're stupid.
Okay, Bob. Well, Bob, you've already spoken.
This long, that's all I need, this
I'm
long.
gonna give you that long.
I just want you to stop and think a minute. I want to quote two of my most favorite politicians on the planet. One of them is my half-brother, who said, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Also, my other favorite politician said we have to pass this to see what's in it.
Well, and Ms. Pelosi, okay. Do I have anyone? Yes, Jerry.
I'm Jerry Griffin, Deidre Circle in Port Richey. So I think everybody here is just concerned about walking in their homes, coming inside of their homes, the first step you mentioned. Myself, I have a garage that's been attached to my house. Cost me $5,500 to put that breezeway there. So I don't want to treat it as an unattached building, which is a part of your new proposal here. That's my house. I paid for it to be a part of my house. It should be treated as if you're walking through my front door, okay? We definitely need standards. I mean, the city needs to be cleaned up, no doubt about it. I'm all for, and I think everybody is, all for something being put in place. I think we just need to adjust the language a little bit. That makes everybody happy. I don't think it's that hard to do. I think Will was probably right last week when he mentioned that the residents weren't made a part of the decision before it was written. And I think it's time to do that. Via, you've already made mention. I think it'd be a great idea to get us involved. And I'll show up to the meeting.
Okay.
And my rotator cuff surgery went very well.
Mine's killing me too.
Thank you very much.
All right. Back to council discussion. I have no problem with, committees, languages, whatever you, it's up to.
You've got a motion and a second on the floor.
I've got a motion and a second. We'll have to deal with that. First we'll.
Okay, I had been asking for the workshops since January. Okay, for the people, for this reason, so that they could get this out of their system and understand every word of what it was. I'm still gonna go nay on the thing because I wanted the workshops for the people.
Jim, if we go nay, do we set a word? I've always been
This was just a statement
concerned
on.
about is we have said for 2 years we're gonna have a workshop. Now, if you wanna set a date specific, I have no problem. Then we have other.
I'm just explaining my nay vote.
But explain how we're gonna get somewhere from the nay vote. We need a date specific, rewrite whatever you want. So,
They've been asking for a workshop, so you
well,
wanna give them
tell
one?
me when. All I
Anytime,
need
I'm
is a win.
retired.
Huh?
I said, at any time, I'm retired.
Well, everybody ought to,
It goes back to what we said originally. Both Ms. Sorrell and I voted no on this every time for the reason that workshops were skipped. We felt we were moving too fast without input, and we thought this is what was gonna happen if we didn't have it. So, again, I agree, we do need to have standards in the city, but I think we went about it the wrong way. And like I said before, it's kind of I voted nay, and I will vote nay again on it. And I think if we need to set up a workshop, I'm all for it. We could have it prior to, after meetings, whatever. But I'm all for that again. That's what we'd said from the first time.
any thoughts from this side?
Well, my comment or vote stays the same. These are Pasco County city ordinances. The commissioners of Pasco County passed them. There's been no problem that I'm aware of with these ordinances that were passed by the county commissioners in Pasco County. I don't see, I think the public is kind of been misinformed somewhere along the line that these are egregious and that they're in effect going to cause them a fair amount of harm, and it's just not so. And I think we realize that. We're sitting here today with a group of 20 people. How many people are in this city? I can tell you when I campaigned, the people wanted minimum housing standards. What better form of minimum housing standards than to just mirror image Pasco County's housing standards? They've done the work, and they have come up with the housing standards, and there have been no issues or problems that, at least that have been publicized with these minimum housing standards. And more importantly, you can develop 16 workshops and committees, and you are never, ever, ever, ever going to please every individual in that workshop or in that committee. And this would be nothing more than kicking the can down the road. It will never, ever get done, because you can't please everybody. It's impossible.
Ma'am, please, please.
Well, I'm angry because I think our citizens have had a great disservice done to them. Someone in this city has gone about giving great misinformation and scare tactics and riled them all up to think that the world is falling apart around their little Port Richey. Port Richey was, excuse me, I have the floor. Port Richey was a great little town when I came here. I saw the potential. I also saw a lot of blight. And I said, you know what? It'll grow. And it has. We're growing. But for some reason, there's somebody or a group of people in this city that seem to want to keep it Podunk Port Richey, which has been our moniker for years, which I will not allow to continue as long as I sit here, and that's going to be another 3 years, and then someone else can have this seat. But in the meantime, I have sat day after day at the county. I have a lunch with the code enforcement officer, and I have had constant conversation with him about this issue. You know what? He's the guy that gets the complaint calls. He's number one when the complaint comes in. He doesn't get any kind of complaints on this code. He gets complaints about trees and other things, but he does not get any. He has people calling in because people will not maintain their property, and affects the value of the other properties around you. I remember an old sign that I saw in a paint shop years ago. It says, "Love thy neighbor, paint thy house." This is such a minimal argument, it's almost laughable. You look at this thing and you've made a mountain, an absolute mountain out of a molehill. Do you think I would put myself, who live in this city, my neighbors, you, my fellow citizens, in jeopardy? Do you think I'd do that? Why do you think I'm doing this? To help improve your city. You should want it too. Why do you listen to people that were not voted in over the people that were voted in, and on a platform that was to improve and clean up the blight in this city? That's what we're doing here, folks. It's not some kind of Gestapo thing, as he says. We're not coming into your homes. The Fourth Amendment won't allow it. I beg you, please just back off of this thing and let us do our job. I don't know who stirred this up. I don't want to know, because I would be very, very, very apt to confront them. This is a disservice done to you people.
Please.
It really is. If you want a better city, this is how you get there. If you want to keep the city In the state of blight like it's been, you like blue tarps hanging in front of garages instead of garage doors. You like garbage out. You like all this stuff just laying out in the yard. If you want to live like that, I'm sorry you feel that way, but the rest of us don't.
Okay, so I assume I have 2 nays and 2 yays, or vice versa, right? I'm gonna cave. I'm gonna tell you why. I totally agree with these guys. If you want a workshop tonight, I want a space, time specific. I want it set right now. Let's pull out the calendars. Let's do it. And you guys run it. Come back with what you think's wrong, and then we'll. Can we postpone this second?
You have a motion on the table, sir. Your
motion
choices
is
are as
second. We have
follows. Well, your choices are, you can vote for it, or you can vote against it. If someone wants to withdraw the motion and table the matter for other reasons, they can do that. But right now, you have a motion on the table. If it's voted down, you could go back to the beginning and start again sometime. But right now, you have a motion on the table.
Okay. Now.
So you
so we could
can vote it
withdraw.
down and start again if you wanted to. It's not a one-way trip, but right now you gotta deal with the motion you have.
Okay.
You start from zero.
I know where we're starting, and I'm telling you why. When I got here, it was like the Hatfields and McCoys. It was the most horrible place to live. And although I believe what they say is correct, and I believe you've been living under these same sort of minimal housing conditions, we'll see I'm gonna vote for you to have your workshops. But I want somebody, Jackie, one of the staff, tell me a date, and let's have it. That's been my whole reason for wanting to push it forward.
You have a motion on the table, sir.
I know that. I wanna see if I can get a date. You can't get a date?
Mayor, I call a vote.
Call vote. Vote.
Roll call vote.
Roll call.
Nay.
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 Yay.
And I'm really yay. Okay, now, we've done that. We need something done. This is a 3-year service. Nobody wants to set a date for this workshop? And we're voting down something and we're not setting a date. Everybody's spoken. We're up here.
When's our next council meeting? 10th, July?
2 weeks.
Yeah, the 10th.
So could we make a light agenda for the next meeting and incorporate a workshop prior to?
Whatever council desires.
All right,
Can
6
you buy
o'clock on the
people-
10th?
6.
6 o'clock on the 10th.
Is that okay with this audience? Okay.
The 10th
All right.
is, well, okay.
But
Make it
again,
live.
let's just be clear on this too. This is not something that we're just gonna go on and on and on. You're getting your opportunity to voice your opinions, voice them when you have the chance, forever hold your peace type of thing, and then we can move forward. Because I do think we do need it, but I do know you have concerns, so let's just go about it, get it done, say your piece, and we'll move on.
Right, and maybe together, before that meeting, you guys can hash it out, whatever you think, and then we'll do the best we can. But most of all, please, let's not fight. We are your friends, you are our citizens, and I don't want to see the Hatfields and McCoys resurrected. I think we're done with that, sir.
I don't want to leave with him telling me that I'm weak-minded. It was influenced by
Well-
somebody else. I'm not weak-minded.
Well, all right, I accept that.
Can we have order? We don't have people.
I don't have a gun, I only have a gavel. Okay. All right, we're done. Next.
Did we agree on that? 6 o'clock?
Workshop, you have to get consensus.
We did.
right?
Workshop is next. Let me have a motion.
On the
for that.
10th?
You can say raise a hand if you're.
On the 10th at 6
You know
o'clock?
what I mean? You got-
All right, everybody
We need to be
okay with
clear.
a motion next meeting?
So what?
With a workshop next meeting like agenda.
There is the troublemaker right there.
6 o'clock, it says nothing to do with.
Right.
Hold on a second. Hey, guys, we're trying to set a date for this so we can be sure, so make sure you're here.
That's them for a motion.
No, they're waiting.
They won't be here.
Just a second.
Just
We're coming to that.
Make it formal. Ask them for a motion.
Motion to hold a meeting prior to the ordinances at 6 PM on July 10th.
Huh?
Gotta be a workshop.
Second?
Workshop.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay. And don't think these gentlemen are against you. They just, what I want you to take out of this is love your neighbor. Be nice to your neighbor. Everything else will fall in place.
Paint your house.
One last item, sir, is item number 5.
Okay, next. We've still got another meeting.
We do.
Talk about dogs.
Where are we? We did the fire department.
Yeah,
Dogs in the
dogs.
park. Dogs in the park.
Dogs.
I wanna cut this
Where are we
to
at?
quick.
Dogs in the park.
I think it's mine.
Dogs
I'll
and
take it
parks.
if you want.
The dog in
Take it.
parks?
What
Can we
is it?
just,
Dogs in park.
Let me take it.
Which one is it?
go ahead.
Mayor,
Please,
unless
sir.
somebody else wants to take it. It's a relatively simple issue. I'm not saying it's not an important issue. As you can see, attached to the agenda item, you'll see our general park regulations do not allow dogs in the parks, okay? We also have a,
Hey, Matt, come on, guys. I've let this get way out of hand.
that's okay. We also have we have a separate ordinance, a separate code section regarding Olsner and Nick's parks, and they also say no dogs in the parks. So without all the legal issues, do you want dogs in the parks? If so, all the parks, that's kind of what I need to know. And I presume that you want them on a leash, so I need to know those kind of things before I can change the ordinance. So that's pretty much it.
You're
I'm for dogs, allowing people to walk their dogs in the park, but it must have a leash law.
Absolutely.
Do I have a motion?
I agree.
Yeah.
I make a motion to
Dog.
allow dogs to walk in all of our parks as long as they're on leashes.
Second.
Okay.
Right.
We got a motion and a second. Anybody have, gotta speak? Huh? Go ahead.
Bring them up on the line.
I don't think you're gonna win this.
Claudia Smith, 7335 Candlelight Court. I have 2 dogs, and
Give 'em away.
I think we ought to just let dogs come to our dog park. I mean, why do they need to go to these other parks and poop and people don't pick them up?
People
You
pick
know,
them up, and people have been doing it for 30 years.
So they do pick up the poop?
Yep.
For the
Okay,
most
so if
part.
we're gonna do that, then that's fine, but we need to have bags.
They're there.
Okay, so the parks are gonna have bags, and we're gonna put them on a leash. Okay, my dogs will be thrilled.
Thank
Thank you.
And that's what we want, thrilled dogs.
We want is happy dogs.
I mean, we let the dogs dine with us in this city. I don't see any reason why if someone wants to take a walk in their park, a leisurely walk, they can't take their dog with them. But we've had an issue with people in Waterfront Park who have not kept those dogs on leashes, and there is the problem, so.
The way I'm gonna write it, unless the council tells me otherwise, I'm gonna say that dogs are gonna be allowed in Waterfront Park or any other park where the signage is posted indicating that they're permitted, so you can change.
There you go.
You can change it, council, and so you have to make all of the sides all the time, and of course, that they have to be on a leash. We already have no dogs at large in the city.
Maybe we should have a workshop.
Oh, dear God. No. We have a motion and a second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimous. Now, we got some single lawyer out there wanting to be too. Okay. Agenda.
FCT agreement.
FCT.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move that we table this till next meeting. It's
Yeah.
late and it's,
And
it can
there's
wait.
some meat in here we need to get.
Can we continue that to the next meeting? If we table, it's gotta be put back on. You want it on the
Yes.
next agenda?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, is that it? I can't even read my scribble now.
Now we have one more.
What do we have?
Boards and committees.
Boards and committees. Do I have a motion table?
Table.
Second.
Second.
Great.
Yep.
Next agenda.
Yep.
You got that motion?
Can I
We
make a
got-
comment,
No, we have
Mr.
another one.
Mayor?
We have to
Been a-
adjourn.
Mr. Mayor.
10 minutes. What?
Can I ask the people again, and if they have some input or they want to be on boards and committees, please make your request known to either a council member or to Jackie Hanfeld. This is your opportunity to participate in your government and have your words heard. So let's go about doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, we're going to postpone old.
I'm sorry, you want to do old business?
We're going to postpone it, but
Yeah, I think
I'll-
it's
I'll-
time.
it's old business, so we can wait another
old.
2 weeks.
Okay, it can be old next 2 weeks, right?
It'll be older next 2 weeks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
10-minute break, CRA meeting.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
Christ,
We
we
got
gotta do
another
CRA
meeting.
yet?
Oh, God, I was ready to leave.
Should be quick.
I was ready to.
I know. Let you know. That's why I was trying to move this.